der letzte Tag auf dem Comic-Salon in Erlangen und ich habe das große Vergnügen, mit Asaf Hanuka zu sprechen, dem Künstler hinter Der Realist und The Divine. Asaf, it's a pleasure to meet you. Hey.
Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you too.
So far, is that your first visit to Germany?
No, it's my second visit. I've been in Berlin 10 years ago in some alternative comics festival, which was great. And first time in Erlangen, and we're having a great time. I'm here with my wife, so it's very special.
You love it here too. It's my first time in Erlangen as well. And when I compare it to other comic fairs I've been to, this is really centered around the artists and around the art, and all publishers are very closely together, artists connecting. I think it's a great place to be for artists and people who love their art.
I've been to a few recently also, and I guess for me, what I love in every festival is that I get to meet other artists and I get to meet face-to-face readers. And as someone who does mostly comics, I spend a lot of time alone in a room. I'm sharing a studio with my brother Tomer, who's also an artist, but other than that, I don't speak to anyone, I don't see anyone, so it's a really solitary work. And suddenly in 3 days you meet all the people you see online for months, and you see the faces behind, and that's amazing.
Are you getting enough sleep right now?
I'm sleeping well, there's always a little party, but it's okay, no problem.
Perhaps let's first talk about The Realist. This was the first release with Crosscut here in Germany. It's the first volume, and it first was a series, and still is, of webcomic strips that you publish, and is now collected in a beautiful king-size hardcover at Crosscut. And it basically it is about your life as a comic artist, as a family father in Israel. What I found remarkably about it was that although you're living there, and although every person in Europe, in Germany, everyone I know, every time I hear of Israel, topics are about religion and politics. And the reader learns to know you as a not very political and not very religious person. And this gave me a new kind of view on Israel.
Well, thank you for saying that. Just one small correction. The Realist is actually being published in a newspaper in Israel. So, so first it was a command from a weekly newspaper on economic subjects, and I do a weekly page, and then I did a blog later on. So I write it in Hebrew, and I write about my problems, and maybe because I write about personal problems, that's always the reason to start a story. That's always the engine of the story, is that I have a problem in my life, my small and regular normal life. And I use the 9-frame grid to try to solve the problem on an artistic level. If I found a visual presentation for the problem, and then try to do a metamorphose or change it, or maybe mix some dream or fantasy into the reality. And I think this is why people can find themselves and see themselves and identify with the stories, because everyone has problems. It doesn't matter if you speak German or Hebrew or English. And it's maybe the image of Israel in German media is, I guess, mostly everywhere in the world. When they speak about Israel, they speak about the conflict with the Palestinians, and they speak about the war. And this is the context in which you hear about Israel. But Israel is really mostly just normal people like everywhere else that are trying to, finish the day and get back home and have a nice life and have a normal relationship with the children, and just the challenges of the banal challenges of living.
Is that something that you intended to do, to show this everyday life of a person in Israel, and to get the focus away from religion and politics?
I don't see myself as a messenger at all. I do it firstly from a very selfish reason, because when I talk about a personal problem, I feel better after it. So it's like a form of therapy. I have a chance, I think. It's like I'm very lucky to be able to look at myself from the outside, because if I have a problem and I don't speak about it, then I imagine it very, very big and threatening. But once it's outside on the page, it gets the right proportions. So I don't have any agenda like I want to people think about Israel this and that. I have my own views about what's happening in Israel. I'm not going to put them directly on the page because I'm not a political cartoonist, but I'm going to try to use this form of family life and family power relations as maybe a tool to hint at what I think is happening in Israeli society.
And although your strip is called The Realist, you have a lot of surreal elements, and that is what makes it so visually exciting. Because you use a lot of pop cultural references, you turn to the Hulk when you get angry, or I saw this great picture you just posted on social media with your arm transforming into this Tetsuo arm from Akira. Yeah. This was something to me that really stood out, because if you normally get a graphic novel or a comic strip about everyday life, it just shows everyday life in a certain style, but does not use these surreal, exaggerated elements.
Yeah. It's true. I think that I don't really believe in boundaries between genres. So, of course, the main thing about my work is that it's a slice of life, let's say alternative slice of life stories about this guy and his family. But as I'm 40 years old now, I grew up in the 80s reading Marvel and DC and mostly X-Men, really. I think my whole childhood was understanding what's happening in the X-Men, what happened exactly with Phoenix and, all that. So at one point I became a father, and then you have to stop believing in superheroes and thinking about superheroes and becoming a serious person and making money and being on deadline. And I think that as someone who draws, because everyone draws when you're a kid, but most of the people have to stop because they're grown-ups, and I kept drawing. So I think it's like keeping some kind of child part in my brain that still believes in superheroes and still wants the superpowers. And I want this fantasy in my life, even though I know it's not real. So for me, the act of drawing is the act of saying it is possible to mix. Because if it's just, line drawing with some flat color, it doesn't matter if someone has a lot of muscles or just a normal arm. It's not like 3D rendering where everything has to be very, calculated. It's very easy to twist the reality when you're just doing line drawings. And I think this is the moment where I have the liberty to maybe dream in a loud sense and show it to other people.
Can you share plans to release a second volume of The Realist in Germany? So there are a lot of people waiting for this right now, I think.
I hope my publisher heard it and he will consider it.
Okay, we will file it on the dead. You just mentioned your brother Tomer, who's a comic book artist also, and an illustrator like you are, and you share one office. And as brothers, and you're twins, are you?
Yes, we are twins.
You just illustrated a comic book about another pair of twins.
Yeah. That
is called The Divine. Would you like to share something about that?
Yeah, The Divine actually is a group effort of Tomer and myself as artist and Boaz Lavie, who was the writer. We were inspired by a true story that happened in Burma, in Myanmar. Tomer saw an article it was 2006 in the New York Times with the picture that is in also the comic book of two twins smoking and holding guns, small kids. And I guess Tomer was really interested about it, and he did a lot of research, and he researched the area and the politics and the mythology around these twins, which were rebels in the jungle leading an army against a real army and had some fights, and it was believed they had superpowers. And together with our friend Boaz, who wrote the story, we did some kind of, I would say, inspired by the true events of the Hatu twins, but in completely imaginary, fictional country, who is called Kwanlum, with different twins, but that kind of look like the real twins. And I think the core of the story is for us also a meeting point between fiction and fantasy and reality, and also the world of adults and the world of kids, and even maybe some mix between America and Japanese influence. It took us 5 years to work on it, and we're really happy it's been translated to Germany.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's just been released for the fair, so I didn't have the chance to read it before, but back in the hotel I had the chance to browse through it. Really looks outstanding. I'm really excited for this.
Thank you so much.
Beside from more The Realist, are you currently working on comic book projects, on more comic book projects?
We're trying to find a way to work on another large format graphic novel with maybe 150, 200 pages. It's very hard because we all have families and obligations, and we have to find the right structure and finance and all that. So it always takes a little bit of time, but we're definitely going to give it a shot.
I'm really looking forward to it, and from what I read in the German media, I'm not the only one. Wow. The people really like what you do, and it's outstanding, it's special, and I thank you so much for answering my questions and being here.
Thank you for the kind words, and I'm glad I answered the questions.
Okay, have a nice time in Erlangen, and have a great travel home.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.